a 420 MSP back with Jim Roddy from the RSPA, and he's just going and growing this special interest group known as the Cannabis Community over there. Congratulations, you're getting some real legs.
Thanks, appreciate that. Yeah, we're up to, as of this recording, 113 members of that community. It's really active. It's not just people who signed up. We get a lot of great attendance, a lot of great engagement on our monthly calls.
Yeah. So speaking of which, we recently just had the monthly call, and give us a recap.
Sure. So the topic that we discussed as a group were VAR and ISV challenges and mistakes that are made in the cannabis vertical. And so we started having a VAR from Oklahoma talk, and they said they tend to serve the restaurant vertical, but now they've been serving cannabis for a while as well, as that grows in Oklahoma. And they said it's so difficult to get face-to-face meetings with new dispensaries because they're almost open before you even know that they're there. And so they already have their point of sale system that they've gone and done the research on their own. And I've heard, over years from the folks in the restaurant vertical, it's hard to know when a restaurant is opening, but this VAR is saying it's even harder to find out when a cannabis dispensary is opening because they tend to be a little bit more hush-hush about that happening. And then they said when they do get a face-to-face meeting, if this, if they haven't purchased a point of sale system already, the biggest struggle is that there's not a ton of money behind this as well. And what they're focusing on is, can I get located on weed maps, and how expensive is it? And because they're so strapped for cash early on, they tend to go for the lower end systems that really don't serve all their needs. But theirs is looking for something that can help them, essentially a cash drawer that ties into some sort of a device. So that's not fully what they need, but at this point it's the bare minimum, and that's what they're going with. So that was one of the biggest challenges that we took away from what resellers are facing.
Yeah. As I've spent some time in the industry and talked to some seed to sale ISVs in particular, you're right. The challenge is always you want to be there when they're in the planning phase and making the initial system purchase, because it's a much harder sell to do a rip and replace. And one ISV out of Redmond was encountering that sheesh, they already have a system. Now you got to go in and convince them to migrate or do a lift and shift to a new system. And, the sentiment was, I haven't had this talk in a while, but the sentiment was, well, no system is perfect in the cannabis field. And I'm talking seed to sale, of which POS is one part of it. But yeah, no system's perfect, but they're usually not so annoyed that they're willing to do a migration, right? It's like, yeah, it's not perfect, but it works. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Like, it's good enough for right now, and this isn't my biggest need at this point. So what I like really shook out of that meeting were the 3 tactics for what do you do when you run into this situation. So one of them is you just stay in touch with the cannabis dispensary, and as they grow, you'll be the solution provider that they turn to. So I like that. You're like, okay, you don't need me right now, but I'm going to be here for when you do need me.
Yeah.
There was also a thing of, before you get caught in that spot, join these local communities, because that tends to be where some of these dispensary owners, before they become dispensary owners, actually end up congregating. So you can build those relationships, or somebody in those groups can kind of hear the word on the street about somebody who's opening up and can get you in there early. And then the last one, we touched on it. And Harry, I still haven't come up with a good marketing appropriate name for this, but I call it the suffocation method. Again, I know it sounds terrible from a marketing standpoint, but if somebody already has their point of sale system, they're like, I don't want one right now. Well, then you say, well, maybe I can help you out from a security standpoint. Maybe I can help you out from a physical security standpoint, maybe from a network security standpoint. Maybe we can help installing a kiosk where you are. Maybe I can provide other services around it. So you end up building that business relationship with them. Then when they're ready to ditch their current system and grow into a new one, or if that current one breaks, because a lot of the ones that they buy aren't hardy enough, just naturally they'll turn to you because you've become legitimately their trusted advisor and their solution provider. So those are the 3 tactics that I've seen that have been most effective, not just from the cannabis vertical, but for resellers in general when they don't have the core system.
Yeah, and I'll end on this. I thought the contribution by Greg James, the publisher at Marijuana Venture magazine, who's my friend and yours, was really good, because he's old school. He's on the phone all day. He is an old school publisher. Mm-hmm. And he talked about, these owners are getting hit on all the time, right? So
right.
It's a high profile target for tech vendors. And he said they're getting hit, they're burned out, they're getting hit on all, stop it. And he suggested, the worst thing you can do is you can't walk into their store and make a cold call, which is also sort of an old school tactic, right? Walking up and down the strip mall and leaving your business card as a commercial leasing agent. Said it doesn't work. And then he's also in a tough spot where he does know the players, in particular in the Northwest. And so people are always asking him, hey, can you introduce me to Uncle Ike? Uncle Ike is one of the big players in the Seattle area. Yep. Well, he's got to watch his reputation, right? Because Uncle Ike is going to say, Greg, stop it.
That's right. Exactly right.
Yeah,
Uncle Ike is going to disown him if he keeps sending people that way. Yeah, in this industry, they call it pulling doorknobs, like just walk around and pulling doorknobs. And here's the thing that the cannabis community is going to have to brace for. They're getting hit right now. They haven't seen anything yet until they start accepting credit cards, because credit cards have ISOs, independent sales organizations. Harry, you and I could very quickly, in a short amount of time, become a registered ISO with multiple payment processors and just go around door to door. And that's what a lot of them do. And so that's what we hear a lot of times in the retail IT industry, that those merchants are really frustrated because they say many of them get up to 5 people a day trying to push credit card processing on them. And you want to answer your phone, but it makes you, want to run away from it at times as well.
Yeah, exactly. So folks, if you're not familiar, what is it? GoRSPA.org.
That's correct.
For your organization. And it's a monthly gathering, the Cannabis Community. So it doesn't even really, this podcast is an evergreen. So it's the second Thursday of the month. We don't need to name specific dates, but I believe it's the second.
Ballpark. It's right around the middle of the month. We tend to keep it between a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday's been our kind of our de facto day.
Middle of the month
is when we have it. That's correct. Yeah, mid-month. But yeah, just go on to gorspa.org. If you just want to do a quick search for cannabis, you'll be able to see a lot of the content that we have, get info on the cannabis community, or you can just reach out to me, J Roddy, that's the letter J, and then RODDY at gorspa.org. And if I could plug our event, Harry, that we're planning for. Yeah. So at the end of July, like a real live in-person 3D human beings in the same room kind of event. So we think, so it's Retail Now is RSP's annual trade show. So it's July 25th through 27th this year in Nashville. And we're feeling like we're in a really good spot for that timing, because we're hearing a lot of folks, nobody's traveling Q1, maybe in Q2, but Q3 is when we hear a lot of folks are going to be ready to hit the road. So we're excited for that. We've already sold a bunch of booths. As this podcast drops, registration is open. And so again, if you go onto the RSP website and just find on the menu there for Retail Now, you'll see all the information. And there is going to be a cannabis specific education track, which we're certainly interested in. And Harry, you want to make sure you block that on your calendar, because we'd love to have you participate.
Yeah, there we go. I'll bring my winter jacket. It's so cold in Nashville in the middle of the summer. But all right, Jim, thank you very much.
Thanks, Harry.